I'm Susan McGinnis in the Energy News Center. Jim Gordon is the man behind the Cape Wind project, which just got White House approval. He's the president of Cape Wind, and he has pushed for Cape Wind for nearly a decade, along the way fighting public opposition, environmental groups, politicians, and more. Jim Gordon, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Susan, for inviting me.
I just want to ask you, how are you feeling after 9 years of effort on this project? But I also want to know, even given this federal approval, you're feeling on just how confident you are about the hurdles that remain, and these are legal and regulatory and more, but do you really feel the biggest obstacle has been overcome?
Well, first of all, Susan, I feel really great for the region and the nation. Secretary Salazar's decision approving Cape Wind has launched the U.S. offshore wind industry. So now we're going to be able to harness an abundant, inexhaustible clean energy resource for increased energy independence, new green jobs, and a healthier environment.
But do you feel the fight is over?
No, I don't. There is a local opposition group that has been making sounds of filing lawsuits as a result of Secretary Salazar's decision. But this group has been involved in this debate for 9 years, and they have already filed about a dozen lawsuits in different regulatory and judicial arenas, and Cape Wind has won every one. The bottom line, Susan, is that this project has been exhaustively scrutinized by 17 federal and state agencies over the last 9 years, and the record shows that this project is going to produce significant public interest benefits at minimal impact. So we're very confident about how the regulatory process transpired, the transparency of it, and the fact that this was the right decision to make.
So do you remain confident that this will move forward, but you do recognize the obstacles that remain?
Well, we're at the starting gate now. We are going to put together project financing. We're putting our construction and engineering plans together, and I'm confident that Cape Wind is going to be producing clean, renewable electricity by the end of 2012.
How are you feeling about some of the conditions that Salazar has put on the project, the configuration and the location of turbines? All this is okay with you guys?
Right. It is okay. I mean, we worked with stakeholders throughout this whole regulatory process, and I think that's why the vast majority of citizens on Cape Cod and the islands and throughout Massachusetts are supporting the Cape Wind project. We've dealt with the leading national environmental organizations that have scrutinized this project. They've had input into it. So the public has had a lot of input into the project, and I think the way the Secretary decided on the project and the mitigation measures that he's imposed are going to work for everybody.
So here's the first approval, but we've got at least half a dozen offshore wind projects proposed along the East Coast and the Great Lakes. Do you generally believe this sort of opens the floodgates, this one decision, to a real start for offshore wind here in this country, and that the pluses, the jobs, the clean energy, the reduction of dependence on foreign oil and reduction on emissions will, in all these different cases, win out over all the worries that are there about the extra cost to consumers, which are supposed to, some say, double or triple power costs, the aesthetic considerations, the cost that it'll take to upgrade grids and transmission lines?
Well, Susan, when you recognize that 28 coastal states consume over 75% of the United States electricity demand, and that's because the coastal states are densely populated, oftentimes they're land constrained. So to have this abundant offshore clean resource adjacent to these coastal states, it's really this is why, you know, raising the awareness of offshore wind and the Secretary's approval and anticipation of the Secretary's approval has really begun to launch this emerging industry. So you're seeing half a dozen proposals up and down the East Coast, and I do think there's going to be a lot of offshore wind farms built in this country because it diversifies our electricity portfolio. It provides emission-free, greenhouse gas-free electricity. And with the urgent environmental, economic, and energy challenges that we're facing in this country, offshore wind will be a welcome addition to America's energy portfolio.
Enough so that it can sort of catch up with some other areas of the world where the U.S. has lagged behind Europe and China.
Well, you know, unfortunately, we're 20 years behind Europe. They put the first offshore wind farms in the early 1990s. China has already started up its first offshore wind farm off the coast of Shanghai. But, you know, America has the entrepreneurial spirit. We're a place where technical innovations reign supreme. And all we were really waiting for was the starting gun to go off. And I think that the significance of Secretary Salazar approving Cape Wind sends a clear signal that this nation is interested in offshore wind. It has a place in the energy portfolio. And I think you're going to see energy companies and investors respond.
Well, it was quite a week for offshore wind and for Cape Wind. Jim Gordon, president of Cape Wind, thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
And I'm Susan McGinnis with Clean Skies News.